This is Garis book readings of my two published paper books, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. This is chapter 5, entitled The Terrans, taken from my book The Artilect War, Cosmists versus Terrans, a bitter controversy concerning whether humanity should build godlike, massively intelligent machines. Chapter 5, The Terrans. In this chapter, I will present the arguments that the Terrans may use to oppose the Cosmists. The Terrans, that's Terrans, by definition, are those people who are opposed to the building of Artilects. The term Terran is based on the word terra, T-E-R-R-A, meaning the earth, as distinct from the term Cosmist, based on the word cosmic. I have deliberately chosen these terms because they reflect well the differing orientations of the two groups. The Cosmists see the big picture, the cosmic picture, as described in the previous chapter, whereas the Terrans are earth-based, terrestrial, inward-looking, and see human beings as the ultimate concern of the human species. If you feel that the selection of these labels is biased in favor of the Cosmist, you are right. I am a Cosmist, so I have deliberately chosen these labels to reflect my basic orientation. There is power in labels. Labels help create concepts, and concepts help influence people's lives and choices. In this chapter, I will try to be as passionate about the Terran case as I tried to be in the previous chapter presenting the Cosmist case. This will not be difficult to do, since I find the Terran case also very powerful. Part of me is Terran, but since the decision to build Artilects is binary, that is, either we build them or we don't, humanity will have to choose. And since I am the one who is introducing these ideas, I had to choose. I chose to be Cosmist. If the primary emotion felt by the Cosmists will be awe, that's A-W-E, then the primary emotion felt by the Terrans will be fear. The Terrans will react against the Cosmists and fear them. They will fear them so greatly that in the limit they will try to destroy them. This chapter is about that fear and why they will be so afraid. I've chosen to take a two-part approach to presenting the arguments used by the Terrans. The first is more an intellectual approach, calm, rational, and persuasive. Towards the end of this chapter, however, I'll take a more emotional approach, appealing to the gut, because it's certain that the Terrans will use both approaches in their attempt to persuade the undecided to join the Terran camp. I believe that the main argument that the Terrans will use is that the Artilects will be so complex in their structure and dynamics that predicting their behavior and attitudes towards human beings will be impossible. Humanity, therefore, cannot exclude the possibility that a non-negligible risk exists that advanced Artilects, once built, may feel so superior to and so indifferently towards human beings that they may simply decide to exterminate us. They may do this for reasons we as humans cannot understand, or perhaps for no reason at all, the way we flush insects down the toilet or swat mosquitoes, just not caring. Insects may be a miracle of nanotechnological engineering, but they're still insects, so from the point of view of human beings, we don't give a hoot about their welfare. You see the analogy? Now, in italics, so for emphasis. The Terrans will argue that the only way to be certain that there will be zero risk of the human species being exterminated by the Artilects is to ensure that such Artilects are never built, in bold, in the first place. If necessary, in the limit, the Terrans will exterminate the Artilect builders, that is, the Cosmists, if the Cosmists seriously threaten to build them. It's probably the most important sentence in the whole book. I deliberately paint the Cosmist-Terran dichotomy in very stark black and white terms for dramatic effect. In reality, however, there's probably a bit of Cosmist and Terran in most of us. Therefore, the level of ideological polarization on this issue will probably be smoothly distributed over all possible combinations of mixed sympathies, Cosmist-Terran. But the relative ideological strength of the two sides will have a dramatic effect on the course of our century and the next. The way the world will be 100 years from now will be determined largely by the relative strengths of Cosmist-Terran sympathies in the world population. It's all a matter of degree. However, sooner or later, humanity will have to decide whether we stop the advance of artificial intelligence or we don't. A binary decision will have to be made at some point. People and governments will be forced to take sides. The views of the Cosmists have already been presented. What are the views of the Terrans? 1. The preserve the human species argument. The Terrans will make strong use of the argument for self-defense. If you kill someone to save your life, you will not be convicted of murder in a law court. If a burglar starts killing members of your family and you take a gun and kill the burglar, a jury will be sympathetic towards you because you were protecting your family from further killing. If you are a political leader of a powerful and technologically advanced country, and a dictator in some third world state starts killing your country's citizens in that state, you will have few qualms about sending in your troops to shoot up the dictator and his cronies. You will argue that it's better to kill a few thousand of the dictator's soldiers now than risk many more of your people being killed a few years later in a larger war created by the dictator if he increases his power and arms supply. Imagine then the rationale of the Terrans. The Terrans will argue that what is at stake late this century may be the very survival of the human species. To the Terrans, the survival of the human species is top priority. It is non-negotiable. Terrans will not tolerate the idea, as many Cosmists might, that humanity ought to take the risk that a substantial fraction of human beings on the planet may be killed by the Artilects. The Terrans will not tolerate the Cosmist idea that Artilects should be unobstructed by human beings to continue their climb up the evolutionary ladder. Such Cosmist reasoning to the Terrans is madness. It is insane and should be stopped at all costs, even if the Terrans have to exterminate the Cosmists to keep human beings as the dominant species. The prime motive of the Terrans is fear of extinction. I can imagine that when the Artilect debate really begins to heat up, the Terrans will be horrified by the calculus of the Cosmists when the latter begin discussing acceptable risks that humanity might be destroyed. The Cosmists will be asking how small, how improbable would such a risk have to be acceptable. The Terrans will be saying that we're not talking about the risk of the deaths of a few hundred people or a few million, but of billions of human lives, of giga-death, of the possible extermination of the planet's dominant species. It would be like wiping out the dinosaurs, only worse, because human beings are such an intelligent species. Human beings have been on the moon. We have built computers. We have language. We compose symphonies. We turn our dreams into reality. We are such a noble species. The Terrans will be incredulous that the Cosmists can even think of playing dice with our species' very survival. Furthermore, the Terrans will ask themselves how the Cosmists can possibly calculate the risk in the first place? It seems such a futile exercise. The likelihood that the Cosmists will be unable to attach a realistic number to the risk will only reinforce the resolve of the Terrans to block the Cosmists. If one cannot determine the risk in the first place that Artilects might one day react very negatively towards human beings, one cannot eliminate the possibility that that risk may turn out to be substantial. This line of reasoning may truly frighten the Terrans. All the more reason, the Terrans will say, not to run the risk at all. It will be interesting to see over the next few years how the intellectuals will take sides on the Artilect issue. It's their job to present new issues to the public. It's possible that the intellect issue will not be understood initially by the general public. For example, in my own case, when I approached the media a few years ago to raise the alarm on the Artilect question, many media people call me a visionary. This usually means that they felt I was ahead of my time. Someone who is ahead of his time is often ignored. I sincerely hope that this will not be the case with this book, and that its message will not be ignored. Actually, so far, the world media has been strongly interested, especially the world's leading countries such as the US, the UK, France, etc. I hope that after the publication of this book, this level of interest will increase, and that the Artilect issue will be well understood and appreciated by the media. But even if it does not stir much interest in the general public at first, I'm quite confident that the issue will be very real and well understood before my death, which should be in the 2030s or 2040s. Surely my own brain builder work and the work of other brain builders who will be studying up in the next few years will generate an awareness of the Artilect problem in the general public. I doubt very much that I'll be the only brain builder who feels that he is very much part of the Artilect problem. I suspect that as the number of brain builders, researchers grows, a fair percentage of them will have the same opinion as I do, namely that we are creating an enormous future problem for humanity, and hence should feel a strong moral obligation to warn the public. Let us assume, for the sake of argument, that this book does stir up a debate within the next few years, and that the intellectuals, the techno-visionary researchers and others begin to take sides. When this happens, what further kinds of arguments can we expect from the Terrans? 2. The fear of difference argument. One of the strongest of Terran arguments will be more irrational than that of the importance of preserving human species dominance. It's the Terran fear of difference argument. Human beings probably have a genetically based, that is evolved, fear of difference, a fear of the suddenly unfamiliar. Whenever we see something different, especially if it appears quickly, we experience an instinctive fear reaction. This makes a lot of evolutionary sense, because in the distant past, suddenly seeing something unfamiliar was usually associated with danger, a real life threat. For example, a large wild animal might enter the cave, or a snake or poisonous spider might approach the baby, or a member of a different humanoid species might suddenly appear on the scene, etc. Terran intellectuals in the next few years will probably try to imagine how it will feel in a few decades' time to know that there is an Artilect box in the corner or in one's mobile homebot that is almost as intelligent as a human being. How will such Terran intellectuals react to the Artilect's alienness? Our human feelings towards such machines will probably evoke a range of emotions, such as awe, curiosity, fascination, and very likely a growing suspicion and even fear. These Terran intellectuals will be asking themselves, how can we be sure that the homebots are fully tested at the factories? If the homebots are given the power to learn, if their circuits are able to modify themselves on the basis of their day-to-day experiences, then how can we be sure that what they learn will always be compatible with the need to be friendly to humans? As the intelligence of the homebots mounts, so will the fear level of the Terrans. As this fear becomes collective, Terran social movements will be formed, and political pressure against Artilects will rise. The Terrans will argue that it does not matter much if the fear is well-founded or not. The fear itself is real. If it does not go away, then the source of the fear should be removed. If several billion people experience this fear, then the quality of these people's lives is adversely affected. Given the large numbers of people involved, there's a strong case to cease the increase in Artilect intelligence. If the Terrans are successful in obtaining such a ban, then the Terran fear should disappear. This Terran fear assumes that higher artificial intelligence implies a greater risk that the Artilects could behave in more dangerous ways towards human beings. Is this assumption valid? Is it possible that Artilects can be made safe, that is, human-friendly, no matter what their intelligence? Asimov, the American science fiction writer, thought about such questions and came up with his famous 3 laws of robotics. The term robotics is his, by the way. The essence of these laws was that the robots in his stories were programmed by humans to be always human-friendly. Personally, I find this idea naive. I discuss this point in Chapter 8. Since many Terran intellectuals will also agree with me on this point, the Terran fear remains. As the Artilects get smarter, they could become more dangerous. There seems to be no easy way around this. I'm running out of memory, so I'll stop here for Chapter 5 and then continue next part on 3, which is called the rejection of the cyborgs argument. Ciao.